The buttons are a little off.
Yeah, but you got them. Okay. All right. The July 19th meeting, the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust will be in order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from July 5th.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes. Are there comments, questions, additions, corrections? Hearing none, voting please. Minutes are approved. Next item is the consent docket.
Move the consent docket subject to individual consideration.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Are there matters to be discussed separately? Hearing none, voting please. Consent docket's approved. Next item on the agenda is the concurrence docket.
Move the concurrence docket subject to individual consideration.
Have a second? Second. Have a motion and a second to approve the concurrence docket. Are there matters on it to consider separately? Hearing none, voting please. Concurrence docket's approved. Item 5 is emergency construction contract. First one is, well, there's only one. The one is project WE0069, Booster Station 14.
Move
State
approval.
Road in Reno. Have a motion for approval. Is there comments on it? Are there comments on it?
Marcia, wasn't this the one that we did to enhance the pressure in the western part of the city when the pressure started to get low out there?
Yes. In fact, we have installed 2 separate pumps at 2 separate locations, Council in Reno and Mustang in Reno. The one you're looking at today is the second one. What we're finding is, though, that additional pumping is solving our problems very consistently with water pressure problems that we had in that area. So we're very excited about that and want to talk to Aqua a little bit more about that as we get a better definition on what to do next and several changes in the capital program. But we're real pleased with it showing us that our big pipe that we've been building for the last 5 years from Lake Draper southwest is actually delivering more water. The water doesn't get there at adequate pressure to help the customers.
I just want to compliment you all on what you've done in the last, is all this heat with the repairs, quick repairs you all have made on the system as it fails. And I understand that summer times are a very trying time with this kind of heat for your system, and I think you've done an extraordinary job.
Thank you. That's very kind. That's a lot of people.
I know it is, but it's still obviously a lot of people working, but it's also very strong and effective leadership. So thank you.
Thank you. Never mind. I have more comments about the water system in a minute. I apologize. I'm taking off, of course. Go ahead.
We have a motion for a second and a second for approval on item 5. Are there further comments? Voting please. Item 5 is approved. Next item 6, is a series of reports. First one is the water monthly pro forma and status report through May 31, 2011.
Will we receive the report?
Second.
Motion and a second to receive can we receive all of them in one vote? I believe we can. We have a motion and a second to receive the reports. Are there comments on any of them individually?
Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of slides to show you on the final report, number D, and I'd like to make certain your audience knows that we're proceeding with construction of new boat stalls at Lake Stanley Draper. We plan to prosecute that work a little differently than we've originally discussed. We'll build one pod of boat stalls at a time as the lake level comes up. So we'll be bidding the first set of boat stalls now to begin construction. We'll build the additional ramps, individual pods of stalls as the lake level comes up. We'll get people back on the lake faster. Otherwise, we felt like we were going to have to delay boat stalls because the lake level is not coming up as quickly as we would have hoped.
And this also, under reports, we also have an update on the water system itself.
Yes, sir. So over the weekend, on your screens, Over the weekend, we had a 60-inch pipeline break at Sunday morning at 1:30. We are currently paralleling that pipe with a replacement. So there was a contractor in place, United Trenching. It was in place to do the work. They were contacted early Sunday morning, started digging out the hole, gave us a price for that, started digging out the hole. We, of course, keep a replacement pipe for these kinds of repairs. The contractor prosecuted the work 24 hours a day until complete. And for that, we're very, very grateful. It's a very critical situation. It stopped us getting more than 20 million gallons a day of water into the north from the Draper plant. So this pipeline runs due north along Douglas Boulevard, straight up to northeast 36th Street, where it splits east and west. So very important piece of pipe. We're really excited, though, the replacement, so that we won't have this problem with this particular pipe again, will be complete later this winter. So it had only started the project maybe 6 months earlier. In hindsight, next slide, Debbie. We talked last time about the Southwest Target area and the low pressure we're having. I've already described that we've made some improvements. Let's look at the next slide. The big picture includes construction of everything that you see in red down to the south, down to the right lower corner. It is complete. New construction going underway is shown in green. Future construction is also shown. As I mentioned earlier, because what we're seeing, how we're seeing the system respond, we believe that making improvements quickly to booster stations 9 and 14, where we've set the emergency pumps, we believe those pumps will actually get adequate water from the improvements we've made already. We'll be able to create a long-term solution targeting that piece of the solution earlier than originally planned as we continue with the pipelines bringing more water again up Portland generally and then out west. So the good news is the pipeline is really helping us already. And of course, we always like to have finished things early. And next slide, please. So we've completed, the Everhorser plant is operating between 15 and 18 million gallons a day, and that has helped ameliorate immediate problems with total volume. Customers used 180 million gallons a day yesterday, despite our problems delivering water. So we're anticipating a much higher day today, perhaps over 190 for the first time. It could happen today. We are continuing to analyze pump performance again and looking at the detailed solution in those pump stations. And we'll come back to you with capital improvement program details as soon as we can get away from emergencies for a little bit. We think things are stabilized. Again, we will see the highest demands. We have another 4 or 5 days of 100-degree weather coming. We believe that when the temperature drops, we will see some improvement in total pumpage. They'll drop off a little bit. But we're anticipating being in the record range of over 170 million gallons a day for several more days, possibly and potentially all summer.
Marcia, we've had a number of emergency repairs to be made this year. Are we way ahead of what we've done in the past, or is it just sort of averaging out as typical of what we've seen?
Yes, this is more extreme than we've seen since 2003. We had a strong summer in 2006. But it was a little bit later in the year, as I recall. 2003 is kind of the benchmark against which we're looking. The last time the system was at these kinds of 170s, 180s every day was 8 years ago now. The main breaks, main breaks always happen in this peak demand season as the soil dries. It's a variety of things. Pressure increases, pressure fluctuates, soil dries out, all of those things that we see every hot summer. Pipes react in the same way your house foundations react. They get stressed and break. Again, there are surges in pressure and flow that have an impact on them. line maintenance is seeing now, a typical day in very normal conditions might be 3 main breaks and several leaks, and they make a total of 10 or 12 repairs. And on those days, they get to do a lot of preventive maintenance work, which is a good thing. Today, they're seeing about 40 breaks.
4-0?
40. So we're essentially almost 10 times the number of repairs that must be made. Again, they may be making other minor repairs, but they're thinking it's 4 times the workload. What they're doing with that, the way they prosecute the work is the water guys, the water crews, are actually making the repairs. We always prioritize the breaks, the ones that are the largest flow, doing the most damage, whether it's streets or property, or the first repair, first priority, and then things that are small leaks that may be making a wet spot in a front yard or on a street but are not causing any damage, any apparent damage, are the lowest priorities. So the code, what we call code 1, the very top priorities, are all being worked very much as they come in within a few hours. Folks who are dispatched, we've been able to keep that fairly well. Line maintenance is working 24 hours a day, making the repairs. They have the wastewater crews, which, because it's very dry weather, there's there are few wastewater immediate repairs required. So the wastewater crews are helping with going out and doing the restoration, filling the holes, getting things ready. Where we are behind, particularly, is with dirt work. We've got mud in streets where we haven't been back with shovels to clean up. We'll have lots of sod to place and yards to smooth out, streets to repair. So that work is all kind of building up. This morning we had about 160 pending repairs of lower priority. And a normal day would be 60 total pending.
How would this compare to a normal day during a summer, previous summer? I mean, it's not a normal day on a year average, but based on our peak periods in previous years, are we running way ahead of the?
No, sir, not worse than what we've seen in extreme summers, again, going back to 2003 and 2006. Our total main breaks, though, through our replacement program, we've been able to decrease total main breaks over the last few years, and so this was we thought we were doing better than that. We thought we would actually get a lower peak in total breaks than we're getting. We're going to be looking at that and analyzing that. Every time we prioritize main replacements pretty much on an annual basis. Sometimes there's not a lot of need for change. We have mild weather. We haven't seen things deteriorate in an area. And other times, a wholesale reconsideration is appropriate. And we will have had enough breaks in this season that we'll want to look at it in detail to see whether there are particular areas that are declining more than others and need a faster replacement. I think in the last time we did that, last time we did this, had an extreme response. We did produce some replacement projects within about 6 months, but others just again go into the repair schedule because they're at the same. Pardon me. I've gone afield. I apologize. So some repairs. Some neighborhoods will need repairs sooner than we expected. Others may be able to wait slightly. It will be uncomfortable for a while until we catch up again.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments about the status of the update on the system? We had a motion and a second to receive the reports. Voting, please. The reports are received. Next item is an item for individual consideration. The first is ratification of the water utilities trust payments.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 7B, which is the ratification of water utilities trust payments. Or comments? Hearing none, voting, please. Payments are ratified. The next item, item B, is a joint resolution with the city and the trust. concerning a solicitation for a contract at Tinker.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 7B. Other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, we have a service agreement with Tinker Air Force Base for water and sewer service, and Tinker has asked us to include language that's required in federal contracts. That is the purpose of this amendment. Nothing changes about the service delivery that's provided or planned.
Any further comments or questions? Voting, please. 7B is approved. Next item's new business. Any new business? No new business. Comments from trustees?
I've got a question, actually two questions. This was generated by a letter to the editor of the Oklahoman several weeks ago about not replacing residential water meters. And we have a program. How do we stand in that program?
We've replaced, since we started the program, we've replaced about 130,000 water meters. We have about 60 to go, but we're looking at a 10-year program, probably about 60,000 left to go in the system. We're working off what will become a 10-year program for replacement, roughly 20,000 a year.
Second question, it was the same letter to the editor, and he referenced other utilities that had an average payment plan in place. Has the water department ever considered putting an average payment plan in place?
We had not presented it to policymakers. The previous billing system didn't allow us to do that. The current one gives us some ability to do that, and I think that there's still some barriers to creating that kind of a program, but yes.
The one charge on the bill that is actually variable more often than the others is the water consumption charge. And we could move into that with some changes to SAP to make that happen. It wasn't implemented as a part of this because it requires us to track and adjust as people get behind, kind of like OG&E does with their electric. But there are complications of that because you're behind on collecting the money to some degree in that process.
Would you like to see what it would take to implement so and have the staff bring back a report on it?
Well, I guess a prior question would be, have we had many requests or inquiries regarding an average payment plan? I mean, if we have just one letter from a customer that's all we've got, I wouldn't do a lot of jumping through hoops to answer it. But if we've had similar inquiries over the years, and if there's any value, I understand we get behind sometimes, but conceivably we can also get ahead sometimes as well. So it would average out over the long haul, I think.
I think there's value to the utility to have an averaged income. This time of year when we're greatly increasing both bills and output of funds, particularly at the start of the fiscal year, it's actually always helpful to have a more average income. We'll be happy to at least take a look at the level of difficulty required.
Now, if there's some advantage to the utility, I mean, we ought to look into it, and we could offer this as an additional service to the customer.
I think we can at least look at it and see what it would cost to provide that option to our citizens and make a good management.
Now, there's a cost obviously involved because the billing system has to be changed, and there's some carrying costs because at times we will be behind and at times we're going to be ahead, so that may average out. But
and we can check probably with utility customer services and see exactly how many inquiries we've had into the service.
thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, we're adjourned.